Welcome to Unapologetically Sensitive, a place to find connection and a sense of belonging, where you can learn, relate, laugh, and maybe even live a bolder, brighter life. I'm your host, Patricia Young. This is a weekly podcast where we talk about sensitivity and the richness that it adds, the strengths we have because of our sensitivity, and some of the challenges it poses as well. The information in this podcast is not a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional. Hey there, to the creatives, healers, sensitives, and deep thinkers. So how the heck are you? I think we're in week 575 of COVID. You'll be hearing this in the beginning of May 2020. And wow, what a ride, huh? I want to talk to you today about some trends and some patterns that I'm seeing. And it's interesting that each week it seems like new themes are developing. What I'm seeing this week is almost this need to return to something that feels safe and secure. I'm talking to a number of therapists, a number of clients, a number of friends that are posting things. And what I'm seeing is like people are having that desire for unconditional love, or if people have lost their parents, they're just having that craving. My friend Stephanie Riley was talking about, she just wants to talk to her mom and to cry and to sit down and have a good talk. And I was talking with my friend Dara Hoffman Fox, who was the person that kind of put this all together for me. What they were saying is that a number of their clients this week were talking about child-parent relationships, attachment issues. Attachment wounds are coming up, abandonment issues are coming up, and it really is making sense to me why this is going on. And so what I was thinking about is, it's like there's so much uncertainty right now, which is creating stress for us. And this is the best analogy that I can think of. So if there's a teen who's living in a home, and maybe say the parents and extended family are living there, maybe a set of grandparents, aunts and uncles, but the aunts and uncles and the parents and all the relatives really do not see things from the same perspective. And the teen is asking, when am I going to get to learn to drive? And maybe one of the parents is saying, well, we'll see. We don't know. And maybe another parent is saying, it'll come soon. And then maybe that parent gets really angry when the teen does something and says, you will never be able to drive. And then a couple days later, that parent goes, well, things are looking good. We're going to let you drive. And then the teen is always hearing the relatives bickering about when they think that the teen should be able to drive. It's just constant. Nobody's on the same page. The teen is seeing other people driving. They're wanting that sense of freedom and they can't get it. And there's no consistency and there's really no soft place to fall and nobody going, I really get that you want to drive. I really get the freedom that comes with that. These are the things that we're looking at. This is how we're going to decide when you're going to be able to drive. This is really hard, but you will be able to drive at some point. This is my analogy for what we're experiencing in the country, at least if we're in the US right now, that I think what many of us are wanting is some semblance of order regarding leadership. And we just don't have that. And so the rules are varying from state to state, from city to city. We really don't know. And the longer this goes on, what I'm seeing is people are getting really, really cranky and very, very emotional. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't do that. What I'm noticing as HSPs is it's becoming more and more distressing to have to observe and be part of these conversations. And I'm seeing it. So some of the things that I'm noticing in myself and with clients and with friends is we're just getting more irritable. We just have less patience. Again, this is not for everybody all the time, but these are just trends that I'm seeing. We're having a sense of restlessness. How long is this going to end? I'm having this thing like I'm wanting things to get back to whatever normal is, and I'm not really ready. If our state were opened right away, I'm not ready to re-engage, but I'm just feeling like, when is this going to change? A lot of what Brene Brown talks about of comparative suffering, well, I don't have little kids in the house, so I don't have it that bad, and wondering how come I'm still suffering and struggling. A lot of people that either have small bouts of depression, are experiencing more depression, listlessness. We can't focus. We can't concentrate. Our attention to details is just kind of going out the door. Self-criticism, oh my gosh, is running really high. Gremlins, that sense of whatever I do, it's not enough, especially with people that are working from home that have small children. They're required to oversee either teaching now or their online school and taking care of everything, especially parents that are parenting as a single parent. There's no break. And as HSPs, we've got to have our downtime. And if you can't even get 5 minutes alone in the bathroom and no time to recharge and maybe no place where you can work privately, that's going to take a toll on us. We often are having at least one day a week where we just don't function. And we sit and stare, or we watch Netflix all day, or we engage in behaviors because we're wanting some sense of escape, of comfort, of nurturing. We can observe that we're doing this behavior over and over. It's not helping, it's not working, and we're still continuing to do it. And then this thing that we do, we look at other people and see how they seem to be managing fine, and they're doing all these activities and home improvement projects, and we compare. And as HSPs, we're absorbing so much energy and taking in so much information. And because we feel on such a deep level, this is just going to be a harder time for many of us. Maybe not all of us, but for me, it's been really hard. Even things like having technical errors, if you're using a computer or you run up against a glitch, like our ability to go like, it's okay, we'll work through it. It's much smaller. And even stuff like noise. I noticed that they were cutting a tree down 2 doors away, and I went for a walk this morning and somebody was using electric equipment, like just even being more sensitive to sound right now. So my whole point in this episode is to normalize, but to also help people understand what may be going on so that at least we understand why things are feeling harder. So I want to go back to this idea of the parenting, the attachment wounds. When I was talking with some friends this week, some of the things that are coming up are if we have people that we're accustomed to communicating with on a regular basis, whatever that looks like, if it's daily, if it's a few times a day, if it's a few times a week, if it's once a week, that's part of how we get that sense of connection and comfort. Many people right now, because they're home with their kids, they're having stressors. Many people, when they struggle, they turn inward. Many of us reach out. And it can feel like a loss if we're not getting that sense of connection from people that it provides comfort for us. And I was talking with a friend who was saying that they felt like they were having withdrawal because they weren't able to have this connection with a friend of theirs, because for a while there was a lot of spaciousness for them to spend time together, and there isn't now. And I was able to say, I don't think it's withdrawal. We're wired for connection. And for those of us that really are able to reach out and want to connect when we struggle, which takes a tremendous amount of courage and vulnerability and strength, it's so much easier to pull back and withdraw because we feel so raw and we don't know that we're going to get our needs met. It can be really painful when those attachment wounds come up in that sense. It's another, it's like one more layer of grief and loss. And all we want is a sense of normalcy and routine. And so to validate, how do we figure out if we're used to this frequent communication and now it's changed? How do we make those adjustments? And especially if it's triggering abandonment or attachment wounds or things from history, is it possible to have the reactions that we're having, still be talking about it and knowing that we're working through it? I was talking with a therapist friend who's going through this right now and was able to say, you're managing it well, even though you're having strong emotional reactions, doesn't mean that you're acting out on them. And how I see you communicating is very, very appropriate. But this is hard. I think we have such a craving for things to just feel familiar and normal. And I'll talk about this in a little bit, but my son and his girlfriend will be coming down to stay with us for a few days. And we went to Costco today. And I can't tell you how much joy I had buying peanut butter for him so that he can take it home, and buying some pirate spooty that he can take home. I haven't been able to hug my kid since all of this stuff started. We haven't allowed him and his girlfriend to come and stay inside of our home. And so that was another thing. I'll talk about that in a little while, but just the sense of getting food for the kids while they're here felt like it was familiar and normal. And it's a way that I love to love him. And We just need that comfort right now. Are there ways that we can become the loving parent that we may not be getting externally for whatever reasons, and just the way that things are unfolding, at least in the United States right now? How can we create some of that sense of consistency for ourselves? One of the things that I think is really important is to lovingly create some structure and routine. This comes from a place of self-care, and I think we've talked about this before. It's like with a little child, if they didn't want to take a bath or they didn't want to go to school, we wouldn't grab them by the arm and yank them and go like, you're going to get in the shower and you're going to get dressed and you're going to go to school. We would be kind and gentle with them, and we might ask them what's going on or find a way to make a bath or a shower more palatable, or tell them we know that they don't want to go to school. How can we make this acceptable to them? And it's the same thing for us, that things like taking a shower every day and getting dressed every day, those are things that give us a sense of esteem and efficacy. And there's a really fine line between being productive for the sake of being productive and making choices that are going to make us feel like we are making choices that work for us, that give us a little bit of a sense of esteem. And one of the challenges that I've really had during this time is I'll get up and take a shower and get dressed and walk the dog, and then I come home and I sit on the couch for a few hours. Pre-COVID, I would come straight into the office and I would get to work. Yesterday, I had no clients, and I did end up doing some things, and I'll tell you about that. I sat on the couch for a few hours, like doing nothing. It's not even like I'm doing things that are satisfying and fulfilling, but this is part of how our depth of processing and taking in so much information kind of hits us. Well, I'll just talk about it now. I'm a little bit embarrassed, but what I'm seeing coming up for me this week is like my sense of neediness. Like I'm just feeling like I have a need to connect. I'm feeling needy. I'm feeling very dependent. I've seen this with a number of my clients this week too. We are just, again, it's that parenting. And if we can't provide it for ourselves and we can get support from other people, that's okay. So a number of the themes that are coming up is around gentle movement. We're absorbing so much stress, and if we're not having a way to discharge that stress, it's building up. And although I've been doing yoga, I've been really squirrely and distracted this week. I have not done anything to really get my heart rate up. And so this morning, I, thank goodness, went out and took a walk and did some hills. The day has been so much different for me. And if it just means putting on music and dancing for one song, just to get a little bit of blood pumping and to release some energy. It's not about exercising. It's not about losing weight. It's not about getting your heart rate to a certain rate. It's about being loving and kind to ourselves and knowing that we're absorbing so much. And the best way that we can discharge that energy is by finding some fun ways to move. If that means skipping or jumping rope or going for a bike ride or going for a walk, whatever it is that's going to bring you some joyful movement. If you're stuck at home with the kids, can you put on a song and dance with your kids and wiggle around? Can you chase each other around the house or have everybody follow you in a circle around the house? I mean, whatever it takes. And with some of my clients, I've said, would it feel supportive to you to text me when you have listened to one song and you've moved? If it feels supportive, whatever it takes right now. And if you need to ask the people that you live with to go for a walk with you, whatever it takes, because I think the longer we go through this, for some of us, it's really wearing on us. And how can we get that support? So what happened on Wednesday was I was telling my husband how frustrated I was. And as you know, I have piles of clutter all over the place. And we have a desk in our dining room that you can't even see the surface of. And, the more I'm doing stuff, the more I just pile stuff on there. And my husband said, do you want some help? I'm like, you have to be really gentle with me because I'm feeling like an angry, rebellious toddler. Like, you can't make me. I don't want to. So he's like, well, let's work on the desk. I'm like, I'll give you 20 minutes. Let's set the timer. And then when 20 minutes went off, I was willing to keep working. And, I had this and I told him, like, I hate needing you. I hate being dependent on you. I hate that I can't do this by myself. And I needed his help and support, and he was happy to support me. And we got the whole thing cleaned off. And I have to tell you that every time I walk through the dining room now, I have this sense of like, I I can breathe. It feels like that sense of tension and clutter. I just don't have it there. And because my son is coming home this next week, I let him know. I took a picture and sent it to him. He's like, Mom, I can't remember the last time I saw the surface of that desk. I'm like, you want to take bets on how long it'll stay clean and if you'll still be able to see it when you get here? But this is about getting support wherever we need to get it. And I needed the help to do that. I've got piles in other areas of the house, and hopefully I'll be able to work on that. But I also cleaned off the kitchen table where I've got all the sewing stuff up for masks. It's not perfectly clear, but that encouraged me to do a little bit more, and that sense of making decisions out of self-love created more energy for me. But it didn't come from a place of, Patricia, you are such a loser, and look at these piles and look at this mess, and you're not getting anything done, and you just better do something to get some self-worth. It came from my husband gently and lovingly supporting me in a way that really worked, and it made me mad. I don't want to need him to sit with me when I clean up stuff. I don't. And that's what I need right now. And the result was it gave me more energy. And then last night, for some reason, I had the energy to clip the dog, and my son helped me. We cut her, we washed her, we blew her dry. I think that when we allow ourselves to have the anger, the frustration, the resistance, to ask for the help, to be angry that we need help, it moves that energy through us, and it creates room for us to take a little bit of action, and that little bit of action feels esteeming. And I found myself today, interestingly enough, making better food choices and eating less dessert. Now, I don't drink. It's not a moral issue. I don't drink. I've been thinking about drinking recently. And I was talking with a client whose partner hasn't had a craving to drink in years and doesn't drink and has been talking about wanting to drink. These are the ways the stress of living in these uncertain times is coming up for us. And I'm naming it so that if you're experiencing some of this, it feels normalizing. It's not to make things feel terrible, but it's to know that whatever's going on with you, you are so not alone with it. And I think the more we talk about it, the more we go like, oh, I'm not the only one. And I saw a post in a group today by an HSP who I really respect, who was asking, like, is anybody else experiencing more depression right now? And I'll tell you, I've had days where it's just been really hard. And how I've been deflecting it, which is not very kind, is thinking I struggle with this stuff pre-COVID. Sometimes it's hard for me to, I'm in bed in the morning on my phone and I don't want to get out of bed, or I don't want to walk the dog, or I don't get work done. And so I've been minimizing what I've been experiencing by going like, I experienced this pre-COVID, instead of honoring that it's a hard time right now. It's really a hard time. And I have to say that one of the gifts is my other son who lives at home. We've been allowing his girlfriend to come down on the weekends. I haven't wanted to share what we're doing because I don't want anybody to judge me. And you know what? If you judge me, you judge me. You don't need to reach out and tell me about you judging me, because everybody gets to choose what they do for themselves. And we've been making choices about how we've been doing social distancing. But the thing that's been a real blessing is they bought water balloons last weekend, and we had a couple of water balloon tosses, and we played in the sprinklers. And then I wanted to get some sidewalk chalk. And so we decorated the sidewalks, and we've been playing games. And if I didn't have my son living at home with his girlfriend, like, I wouldn't be doing these things. And so I feel really grateful for these little pockets of joy and play that we're getting, because as we know, many of us HSPs really struggle with play. I want to talk a little bit about a few of the things that have been going on. Again, just to let you know that you're not alone, so that you can see if any of this stuff is similar to what you're experiencing. And then what I want to do is wrap up with some ways that we can really nurture ourselves and be present for ourselves. So I've told you that my son who lives out of town, he's come down twice and we've done social distancing. He usually comes down and spends the night. He and his girlfriend come down. We haven't let them spend the night. We hardly let them in the house. If we let them in the house, we've got strict rules about it. I'm really missing my son. And we bought more water balloons and I sent them a picture. And so we asked if they could come down. I thought they would come down for the day, and my son asked if they could spend the night. And I went over to my mom's house, and my husband ended up coming in. I told my son on the phone, let me talk to Dad about it. And I said, I'm crying right now. Like, no mother should ever have to decide if her son, if her child can come home. I mean, no mother should ever have to do that. And so I talked to my mom and I talked to my husband and I just had a good cry. And, we figured out what's going to work for us. And we have to set some limits so that we feel like we're safe and we're bending a little bit more than I feel comfortable bending. And it has been so hard for me to not see my son. I think I shared that the last time they came to visit us, when they left, like I just sobbed. I haven't been able to hug him. It's really, really hard. And no parent should ever have to make that kind of a decision. And then when I was talking with my mom today, I cried too, because I know all she wants is to spend time with me. And I have not been super available. Sometimes I am, but quite a lot of the time I'm not. And usually it's because I'm busy. Like, what do I say? I sat on the couch all day staring and playing games on my phone. And I was honest with her and just told her, and with that self-criticism that's coming up, feeling like I'm not doing enough, I'm not showing up enough for her. We had an amazing talk, and she was able to let me know that I'm showing up for her in the ways that really matter and that it was okay. But I think many of us are absorbing the sense of guilt and we're not doing enough. And no matter what I do on the days that I do things, it feels like it's not enough. Then I've talked to you too about the hypervigilance with walking the dog, and you'll hear this in another episode that's coming up. But I feel like there are a couple things that happen. I call my walks with the dog like my irritability walks. It used to be a time when I would get peace, and I really look forward to getting out with the dog and walking. It's springtime in San Diego. It's beautiful. And I find myself getting really hypervigilant. I see somebody approaching. Are they going to move? Am I going to have to move? If it's somebody that doesn't have a dog and it's just a person walking, I haven't said it, but I'm so tempted to go, unless you're planning on peeing or pooping on the grass, why don't you move out to the street, since the reason why I'm taking my dog out is that she can pee or poop on the grass. I haven't said it. There are days when I feel much more empowered and less hypervigilant. And if I see somebody, I just move out into the street and don't make a deal out of it. There are other times when it just makes me really angry and frustrated, and I won't make eye contact because I feel really righteous about they should be moving. I wish it wasn't this way. I wish I had more peace. I wish I had more tolerance. I just don't. And then it's funny, there's this woman that she and I walk our dogs at the same time, and we do a circle around my block. So we'll pass each other going one way, and one of us will move out in the street. And then when we cross to the other side and we pass again, then the other person just moves out of the way. It's really beautiful. And I would say, for the most part, people are being really respectful about social distancing, but it's that hypervigilance. Or if I hear somebody, I'm looking behind me wondering, are they going to move? Or I, approach a corner and I'm wondering, is somebody there? It's like playing Frogger, or we'll be at corners and, trying to figure out who's going to stop and who's going to go. This is challenging stuff, and it should not be an irritability walk. And sometimes that's just what happens. And then I don't know what y'all are doing about when you bring groceries into your home or if you go out, but, we've made a choice. And again, everybody gets to choose for themselves what they want to do. This is not a statement of you should be doing it, you shouldn't be doing it. People really get to decide what works for them. And many people, for their own sense of mental well-being, are needing to make choices that work for them and the people that they love. Who am I to say whether people should do that or not? We're making choices as a family about what works for us. But I think we need to talk about this stuff and to name it, because we're going through it and it creates stress for us. So let's talk about some of the things that we can do. I think being really mindful about how much news we're taking in. And for me, I felt like for a period of time, I wanted to watch the news because I want to know what's going on, because things are so politically charged that I go on Facebook and I read all these articles, but there's so much finger pointing and blaming and politicizing and splitting that it makes it really challenging. And when our governor said that we were going to be on shelter in place for an indefinite amount of time, I posted it on one of my social media accounts. And somebody that I went to high school with posted something that I don't agree with. And I just said, I'm not sure that I see it that way. And then this person went on to post even more stuff with links. And it just felt like this is my space that you're in, and you're talking about something that I'm not so sure I agree with. And I ended up just deleting the post. I went in and changed my settings so that I'm not going to see things from this person. And then I reposted again because it felt like a violation. So we really need to make decisions about what do we want in our consciousness, in our news feeds, and in our lives. I've been doing a way more unfriending and unfollowing and snoozing people because I get agitated when I'm on social media. And really, what would be ideal for me would be to go on, check in on my groups, check in on a couple things, not look at articles, and get off. And for me right now, I'm needing to limit the amount of news that I'm watching because it's just starting to really agitate me. And I had a really, really disturbing dream last night. It was too graphic to share with you, but it was because I watched the news and it was about symptoms of COVID, and I had this really disturbing dream. Being mindful about what are you consuming. Going back to that concept of loving movement, are you getting loving movement? And to come from a place of joyful movement, loving movement. It is so important for us to get connection and support right now, whether it's from our partners or friends, other HSPs. If you're not in therapy and you're open to seeing a coach or a therapist, this really is the time when I think we need to get, we really should be amping up the support that we're getting and having that sense of connection with somebody who really understands what we as HSPs are going through. Obviously, we're all going to be going through it differently. It's going to be impacting us. But I just did a consult with somebody this week who was sharing about their therapist doesn't quite understand the traits of being an HSP and will often say you're worrying about this too much, just let it go, which ends up being almost a microaggression. And I don't mean this I don't mean to call out a therapist, but the implication is that we should be able to go like, oh, you're right. Okay, that's done. We can't do that. And so it really ends up being a disservice that when we don't know about our trait and we have practitioners who don't understand about our trait, that they can say things with the idea that they think they're being helpful, but they don't understand that this is how we're wired. And I read something that said, take a break. And when you have social times, don't talk about COVID. I have to be honest with you. I don't know that I could honestly have a conversation right now and not mention something. And I know when my kids were little, the advice was when you have a date with your partner, don't talk about the kids. We love talking about our kids. And so again, this is an area where if this fits for you, if you're able to not do it and that works, I think that's amazing. For me, it's always my kids were always on my mind. COVID is always on my mind. Yes, I can do things and get a little bit of a break, but I honestly don't think I could have a social interaction with somebody and not talk about how I'm being impacted because it's a part of what I live and breathe every single day. We've got to find ways where we're getting comfort and nurturing. We just need that. If it means watching sweet movies or reading sweet books. Before the libraries closed, I actually had gone and checked out a juvenile book from my childhood that somebody had brought up in a Facebook thread. And I got so much comfort reading it. And it made me pick up some other books from my childhood, whether it's listening to music or finding puzzles or crafts or writing love notes to people or being creative, spending time out in nature. Anything that we can do that's going to give us a little bit of solace. And I'm finding I'm really enjoying sitting on our front porch and just watching people. Feels like I'm not doing much, and I'm probably not, but we need to have that downtime to rest and relax. I have a friend who every day will spend time closing her eyes, and she does legs up the wall. If you don't know what that is, you go to a wall, you're laying on your back, and your bottom is kind of pressed against the wall, and your legs are at a 90-degree angle resting up against the wall. It's a restorative yoga pose, and that's something that really works for her. And I think the bottom line is to really try and have as much compassion as we can for ourselves and for other people. And I've talked about this before, that it's not uncommon for us to go into fear and doubt, and then we jump into judgment and irritability, and then we jump into the fear and the vulnerability. And, we can rapid cycle between the two of them. I wish that there was a term that we could use, because almost everybody that I talk to who's an HSP Our mood states can change so quickly throughout the day. And it's not typical for us. And to know that, at least for right now, if that's what we're experiencing, it's what we're experiencing, and to let it be okay. So if there are things that you can do that are going to bring you a little bit of joy, even if it feels like it's a little bit of an indulgence, I think that we need to have places of comfort and a soft place to fall and nurturing, and just really allowing ourselves to take in whatever love we're having. If we're having resistance, to have it be okay to have the resistance. It's like it's a pressure cooker when these little things keep building up and we have a hard time asking for help or asking for support because we don't want to be a burden, or we feel like it's our job to care for our family and our partners and our children and our parents, and we don't take care of ourselves. We really have an opportunity to model, especially if you have highly sensitive children, how do we take care of ourselves and how do we communicate what we want? Because chances are we don't want our children to be experiencing what we're experiencing if we're not able to take time for ourselves. This was something that came up in one of the online Zoom groups. And if you don't know, I have a closed Facebook group called Unapologetically Sensitive. There's some amazing engagement in there. It's a very supportive group for right now, at least for the month of May I'll let you join the group if you're interested, but we're doing weekly Zoom calls where I jump on and we talk about what's going on. I'll talk about whatever trends that I'm seeing. People have a chance to share and get support, and it's really been amazing. I also have a closed Facebook group for therapists and healers called Unapologetically Sensitive Therapists. I realized there are healers after I named the group and announced it, so I'm not going to change that. I really am hoping that each and every one of you, as hard as this time is, to know that we are all doing the best that we can. This is a challenging time. We will get through it. It will not be permanent. We are the healers, the change makers. We are the emotional glue that holds our families and our relationships together. We may be feeling things more deeply than we were pre-COVID. People are counting on us. We have gifts. We've got incredible strengths. Even if it's hard right now, we can do this. We can manage. We will get through it. If you're struggling, if you need some support, consider joining the closed Facebook group. Reach out to me. I do online work all over the world. What I'm doing with the online HSP courses, if you're interested, send me an email either at unapologeticallysensitive@gmail.com, or you can go to my website at unapologeticallysensitive.com. There's a tab with the HSP groups page. I've had some people express interest, but I haven't had enough people to get a group together. And so what I'm doing is just collecting names. I know with COVID, finances are very unpredictable right now. People don't know what's going on. But there are people that are telling me that they really could use the support and they really want to be around other HSPs because they're just not getting that support right now. And what I can tell you from the last 3 rounds of groups that I've run is it can really be an amazing experience to be in a group of other HSPs where everybody understands what it's like to have deep feelings. Everybody may not be experiencing the same thing, but to get a reality check if you feel like you're being too much. I mean, that's a big thing. Many of us right now are feeling like we're just too much. That sense of validation and normalization can be so incredibly healing, and to have that experience in a group and to know what's possible means that you can take that into your other relationships and go, hey, this is what's possible. How are my other relationships measuring up? And what do I need to do to see if I can change these relationships and have them be more satisfying? I generally wait and run them a couple times a year. We're just, again, in unprecedented times. So if I can get enough people together that are interested in a group, then I will run one, and we're just going to play it by ear. I really appreciate each and every one of you. If there's anything I can do to support you, best thing to do is to join the Facebook group. It's really a beautiful, lovely community. Melissa Childs has set up a Marco Polo group. Trudy Scott is adminning the group for me, and she's creating some great posts where people can do a check-in and talk about what's going on. Amber Lansford is adminning the group for me right now and doing our welcome posts. I'm just so grateful for the beautiful people that I've met and the supportive community and all of the things that people are sharing in this group. So that's my little talk for the group. Remember, sensitivity is nothing to apologize for. It's our superpower. Have a blessed day.